Early in Ovid's Metamorphoses, we get the story of Phaethon meeting his father Apollo, also known as Phobos. So Phaethon learns that his father is Apollo, the god of the sun, and he seeks out his father. And book 2 starts with Phaethon approaching the palace. We read, quote, "The palace of the sun rose high aloft on soaring columns, bright with flashing gold and flaming bronze. The pediments were closed with sheen of ivory, the double doors dazzled with silver." And the description goes on for some time, skipping ahead. Then Phaethon, climbing the steep ascent, entered his father's palace and made his way direct into the presence, and there stood afar, unable to approach the dazzling light. And it describes Phobos, or Apollo, sitting there, and the calendar months standing by his side, and the different seasons standing there. And they meet for the first time. They have this encounter. And Apollo says, "Indeed, you are my son. And as such, you can have whatever you want. I will give you whatever you want." And Phaethon says his wish is to ride his father's chariot for one day. And his father's chariot is the sun. He wants to ride the sun across the sky. And the father, Apollo, is not happy to hear this. The story continues. Grief and remorse flooded his father's soul, and bitterly he shook his glorious head. "Rash have your words proved mine. Would that I might retract my promise, Phaethon. This alone I would indeed deny you. Yet at least I may dissuade you. Dangerous is your choice. You seek a privilege that ill befits your growing years and strength so boyish still," right? So basically saying, I made a big mistake. I should not have given you this offer because you are not capable. You are certainly not capable of riding this horse of the sun, this chariot of the sun. And we get a long description of why it's impossible, how hard it is, how dangerous it is, how dizzying it is. And it's powerful, beautiful poetic writing, which we're not going to read. So he finally ends by saying, "But, oh, my son, amend while time remains your choice, so may my gift not be your doom. Sure proof you seek of fatherhood. You want proof that I'm your father. Indeed, my dread sure proof affords," right? He says, you want proof that I'm your father by me giving you something. The fact that I won't give this to you should be proof that I'm your father. A father's fear proves me your father. Phaethon ignores the entreaties of Apollo, and he decides he still wants to ride the chariot. And then we get this sort of heartbreaking last words of advice from the father. "If this advice at least you will obey, spare child the whip and rein them hard, they race unurged." He goes on to describe how you should ride them, how you should try your best to control them. And the father, you sort of sense the grief in this advice that he's giving. The story continues, skipping ahead a bit. "Phaethon mounted light and young and proud, and took the reins with joy, and looking down, thanked his reluctant father for the gift." Of course, it doesn't go well for Phaethon. Just to read, skipping and reading just a little bit here, the description of what it was like. Incredible poetic language here. "But lightly weighs the yoke. The chariot moves with ease unwonted, suspect buoyancy, and like a ship at sea unballasted, that pitches in the waves for lack of weight. The chariot, lacking now its usual load, bounced driverless, it seemed, in empty leaps. The horses in alarm ran wild and left." And it goes on to describe this pell-mell, wild race of the horses through the heavens, and ultimately lighting all the constellations on fire, setting fire to the firmament. And only the earth is somewhat spared because it's so much encircled with water. And Phaethon eventually gets shot down out of the sky by Jupiter, I believe. He falls to his death. So describing that conclusion here, "He thundered, and poising high his bolt to blast, struck Phaethon from the chariot and from life. And fire extinguished fire, and flame quenched flame. The horses in wild panic leapt apart, burst from the traces, and flung off the yoke. There lie the reins, the sundered axle there. Here the spokes dangle from a shattered wheel, and far and wide the signs of wreckage fly. And Phaethon, flames ravaging his auburn hair, falls headlong down a streaming trail of light, as sometimes through the cloudless vault of night a star, though never falling, seems to fall. The Hesperian nymphs bury his smoldering body in a tomb, and on a stone engrave this epitaph: Here Phaethon lies, his father's charioteer. Great was his fall, yet did he greatly dare. Beautiful. Such beautiful poetic language. When I think about this story, it reminds me of other stories I've either read about or heard about from life, where a father makes certain decisions, a parent, let's say, makes certain bad decisions in their life, decisions that are harmful to them and to others, and they beg their child. They beg their child not to follow in their footsteps. They beg their child not to take the same path, because they know how ruinous it is. They know how dangerous it is, and they beg and they beg, and the child doesn't listen. And why doesn't the child listen? Well, parents often want their children to heed their words, but really children heed the actions of their parents, and those ultimately are what guide a child. Secondly, you can identify sort of intergenerational patterns that play out, and I think it speaks to the bond, this powerful, this unassailable bond between parent and child, where it's almost fated, it's almost required that the son sort of play out some of the patterns, because the connection there, the identification there, is so strong that no amount of entreaty or begging or words can dissuade a child from playing out those patterns, from taking a hold of those reins. And the outcome can be tragic or doomed, but it also, I think, reflects something profound about the relationship between parents and their children. We'll stop there. Thank you for watching. I will see you tomorrow.